Good. Minute 26 in the Legislature in Guam is back in session. We're still on second reading, and we are now on Bill number 211-36 COR. Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill number 211-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, and is an act to amend Section 5103F of Article 1, Chapter 5, Division 1, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to increasing the compensation for the Board of Commissioners of the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, known as GURA. And this was, I introduced this bill, and I asked that it be allowed to go to the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss the bill.
Please discuss.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Buenas and half a day, colleagues. Bill 211-COR, as amended by the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, introduced by myself. This legislation will increase GURA's Board of Commissioners' compensation from $50 per meeting to $250 per commission meeting. The monthly compensation shall not exceed $500 per month. GURA is completely federally funded, and thus the compensation of Board of Commissioners will not have any impact on the government of Guam. It's fully federally funded. GURA's Board of Commissioners diligently and duly promote the mission of the Housing Authority, which is to promote the health, safety, and welfare of our people by improving our island community through redevelopment and renewal of communities. Primarily, it is their fiduciary responsibility with the hundreds of millions of dollars they allocate and expend in the housing they provide families and in the projects they support and execute for the government and other entities. GURA's Board of Commissioners holds a powerful role within the agency as the board ensures that our local Housing and Urban Renewal Authority follows the rules and regulations imposed by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and also sets policies and budgetary decisions for our local Housing Authority. The success of GURA reflects the hard work of their Board of Commissioners and their management team and staff. Other jurisdictions such as Massachusetts and Indiana have seen the work and commitment of their own local Housing Board of Commissioners, as they have increased the compensation similar and even higher than the stipend of $250 proposed in this legislation. I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners, GURA, and all the Government of Guam board members for providing their knowledge and expertise to service the people of Guam. I hope my colleagues will support this legislation and support GURA and their Board of Commissioners in continuing to promote the welfare, health, and safety of our people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill 211-36 COR, Senator Muñoz-Barnes, Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this bill number 211-36 COR. Madam Speaker, if you know that when you look at the fiscal note of this bill, both PBMR and the Office of Finance and Budgeting noted that the Board of Commissioners of GURA have a full 7 members. The annual fiscal impact will be at $42,000, but it was noted that GURA would absorb all the costs as they are federally funded and no appropriations would come from GovGuam. Madam Speaker, I support those efforts. As you know that GURA is a federally funded agency, and these board of directors have been meeting in the last several terms that we know of consistently, and this resource coming from the of course not from the government of Guam would not have an impact or affect our general fund. So in this effort, with all the work that they do with the agency, working closely with the board of directors, I support the efforts and thank Senator San Augustine for bringing it up to the forefront, as he is the oversight chair for housing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this legislation. Sainamasi.
Sainamasi. On Bill 211-36 COR, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Senator Taitagui, you are recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I attended the public hearing for this bill, and actually there was only myself, Senator Brown, and of course the author of the legislation and the director that was present at the time. And it's just ironic to see something like this come before us, where you're increasing stipends to almost 400%. I could see doing something gradual, as time progresses, to increase it a little bit more, due to the gas and issues that we're having. And then I thought to myself, people who serve on the board do this to contribute to the community, to give back to the community. Many of those people who serve on the board, and not just this board, but other boards, they look forward to being able to make a difference in this island, that their vote could make a change for the better. I don't think this is about money for those who are serving on the board. And you know what? It shouldn't be about money to serve on a board. This is a duty of everyone on this island to do their part. By increasing this one particular board to $250, which regardless if it's done by the federal, only by federal funds, it's not going to hurt our general fund. Well, right now it's being paid by federal funds. The $50 stipend is being paid by federal funds. That's never been a question, but now you're setting a precedence for all those other boards. So we're saying right now they're not as important as the GURA board? That they don't get theirs increased to $250 every meeting, no more than $500? That's a total of $6,000. We have not made this about contributing to the community. We made this about money. And shame on us for doing that. I know one particular board that works very hard, meeting twice a month to look at all these documents coming before them for businesses opening up on Guam. The ABC board does that. What about the other boards that we serve? Are they less important? But seriously, from 50 to 250? Madam Chair, I understand that we want to thank those who want to serve on the board, and we do that every time. We listen to what they can contribute to the community and see the excitement in their eyes to be a part of making Guam a better place and safer place to live. Let's not, take away that one thing that these people who are serving on a board, their chance of giving back to our island. Let's not disgrace this with money. The best things in life are free. You've heard that. Many of us have heard that. And giving back is one of the greatest feelings in the world. And many of those people sitting on our boards today are doing just that. Let's keep that respect and not turn this into a money thing, especially at a time like this when we're still in a pandemic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill 211-36 COR, is there any other senator who would like to be recognized? Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I also rise in opposition to Bill 211, and primarily because it does send the wrong message at this time. I don't know if there's ever a right time. But lately, and certainly my coming back to the legislature after a long absence, the tone has changed dramatically. It's one of spend, 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 spend. Do increases. And I mean, who doesn't want an increase in their salary or their compensation? Most people do. But that's being done by the administration already without us. I mean, they're taking money and just simply deciding out of the blue, we're going to do a $16 million increase to the obligations of the people of Guam with no other review other than them wanting to do it and make appear to the public that they're the great saviors. Because they're giving the people back something that actually is their own. And the tone of this current legislature, I have to tell you, my dear colleagues, every time we do these increases without reservation, I think it sends the wrong message out to the public about our fiscal responsibility. And why the Gora board? There are many other boards and commissions this government that do far harder work, that are more directly beneficial to the community, that benefit far more people in the community than Gora. And while Gora has a very important role in our community, they don't affect everybody unless you're a recipient or eligible for Gora's benefits. But yeah, I agree with the previous speaker. Gee, 400% increase? Man, we're rolling in dough. And we show no fiscal constraint because the majority of members of this body just keep raising their hands and let's spend. Why don't we join the administration? The money's there, let's blow it all and let's take care of ourselves while we're at it. When there's so many other dire needs in this community that we are unable to address, we have not addressed in terms of prioritizing. And knowing full well that if we're going to live in our own economy right now without this huge, massive infusion that we've never had in the history of the government of Guam, what do we do with it? We spend, including some of these little pet projects that we have that have nothing to do with the pandemic and the recovery of our people. And some of the members of this legislature, if they don't get their way here, well, Adaloop's there to find the money and give it to you. And that's how things have been running on behalf of the interests of the public. And so here we are now. We want to take an increase because, it's no impact to the general fund. It's why not? It's Uncle Sam's money. Let's just spend it. But are we looking at the greater message that's being sent out there? Because if we have to stand on our own 2 feet right now economically, we would crash. We will crash unless you want to tell everyone that works in the visitor industry and all the support businesses that are there for the visitor industry that they don't matter. You go down to Tumon, except for most of the military people that they're accommodating that are here for our exercises and other things are transiting in and out of Guam. And maybe a few, tourists sprinkled in. And while all this is going out around us, we have such incredible uncertainty about the economic future of Guam. Even greater right now, the economic uncertainty of the world. Because these issues are very close to our borders here on Guam. We're not just dealing with Russia and the Ukraine. We're dealing with North Korea. We're dealing with China that's in our backyard. There's so much uncertainty of what's ahead of us. And God help us if something happens there. What are we doing to prepare or plan for any of that? No, we're not doing any of those things because we're too busy spending. We're too busy increasing. We're still busy appropriating, even when there's no money to appropriate. We can't print bills fast enough. We can't do press releases fast enough. Because we want to take the credit and show the people of Guam how good we are and how great we are to be able to give them all these wonderful things. And what road are we leading them down? There's nothing that I've seen to justify why we should give Gora or any other board at this point a significant increase in compensation. The whole intent behind boards and commissions on Guam, unless they're raised like the private sector, where they're actually paid, in some cases, substantial stipends. Maybe we sit on the board of a bank or insurance or whatever, then wow, it's profitable. I was never imagined that that was the intent of public service, of serving in the boards and commissions for the government of Guam, to serve the people. And I can't see how we can justify, because you're using Uncle Sam's money, that's the reason why we should do it. There's nothing in this bill that's, even by word, there's nothing here that substantiates why this is necessary. Is no one going to ever serve on the GURA board if they don't get a 400% increase? Is the demand so great that we have to do this because no one else wants to serve on the GURA board? I mean, unfortunately, the history of GURA is not the most stellar in the history of the government of Guam. So colleagues, while you continue to vote to increase everything, while you continue to not plan for the economic future and the challenges our people are dealing with, while we continue to spend as if all is good, those out there that are not so good are going to be watching while we're busy spending all their money. If this was for something significant that was really needed in our community right now, I would be the first to be up here to say I'm for it, even during tight times, because I can say this can be justified. This is something that will directly benefit our people. I don't see how this directly benefits our people. I think it plays right into what the administration's doing right now. Spending money as if it's going out of style. Spend, hire, promote, justify continued increases. You know, we don't tell the people of Guam that when we're out campaigning, right? And we're all in that season now. We don't tell them that. And then we get in here and boy, gosh, we can't spend I've never been in a legislature that's been so spend happy as this one. Talk about walking in a time warp. Maybe I'm from another generation. But I think we need to show some fiscal responsibility. That is our job. This is the people's money. And even the federal money that's being received on behalf of this government is intended for our people. It's not ours. And by all means, we should be more responsible with how we spend it. I don't think that sets the good example, because what's next? What's the next board and commission we can say that's really working hard that they should receive a 400% increase? There have been many years, Madam Speaker, that I've served, we've even removed the compensation to board members because of the financial situation of the government. The $50, they weren't even getting the $50. They weren't even getting money to pay for the gas to drive to the meeting. And thank goodness, many of the people that served on the boards and commissions continued to stay and continued to serve because they felt that was their public duty. They weren't doing it for the money. And most of them jokingly say, my goodness, this just barely pays for my gas. Well, now it probably doesn't pay for the gas at all. Those are the kind of people in our community we want serving on boards and commissions. And I can't reiterate, I can't emphasize enough, this sends out the wrong message. We need to show some sense of fiscal responsibility. Sure as heck the administration isn't doing it. Especially when they make these considerable increases to the cost of government that they're adding on indefinitely, and then their public statements are, oh, we're going to work with the Guam Legislature. We're going to work with the Guam Legislature to fund these continued increases. I don't know who they're talking to, the Guam Legislature. Maybe there's a select few here that are in the in, and the rest of us are all out. But we certainly, in our branch of government, should be responsible. We can't even, you saw that, Madam Speaker, the other day. They're giving us the financial projections for the upcoming fiscal year. And once again, they still give us no plan of how they're going to spend the people's money. The ARP money that they've got the next several years to expend, almost $400 million. And yet we're going to be expected to pass a budget without that information once again. And probably, colleagues, you'll vote for a budget without that information once again. Because instead of doing what we're supposed to do, we abdicate our authority because we're not being fiscally responsible. Because, oh, the money's there, let's spend it. Spend, spend, spend. This legislature is wonderful. Wow, the 36th Guam Legislature. Let's shroud ourselves in it. So obviously, Madam Speaker, you can see from my comments, I have no support for this bill. I don't see any justification for this bill. And I sure as heck in the timing of where we're at can't see how this is a priority. So with that, Madam Speaker, I stand in opposition to this bill. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill number 211-36 COR, is there any other senator who would like to be recognized? If not, then the sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. This legislation is to ensure the compensation of our GURA Board of Commissioners is in line with millions of dollars they must protect and distribute in programs and services as they continue to promote the health, safety, welfare of our people by improving our island community through orderly redevelopment and renewal of communities. GURA is 100% federally funded, and increasing the compensation of their board will not affect our local appropriation. So tempting, Madam Speaker, to respond to my colleagues what they said, but we'll leave that for later. I ask for the support of my colleagues, and I thank you for the time. Zeus Masi.
Sidus Masi. On the motion to place Bill number 211-36 COR on the third reading file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now on Bill number 236-36 COR. Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill 236-36 as amended into the third reading file. As amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, Statistics, Research, and Planning, introduced by myself, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, co-sponsored by Speaker Teresa M. Terlahi, Senators Joanne Brown, Talina Cruz Nelson, James C. Marlin, Joe S. San Augustine, Clinton E. Rangel, and Teleti Taitakui. It's an act to amend Section 5213 of Subarticle B, Chapter 5, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to strengthening the requirements of small purchases. So I would like to make the motion to put in the third reading file, and I wish to discuss.
Please proceed.
Bill 236-36 aims to increase accountability and transparency in the procurement of small purchases by the government of Guam. Small purchase procurement method allows for practicality for agencies to move quickly on supplies, services, and construction, meeting the required monetary threshold. Current statute sets small purchase thresholds at $25,000 for supplies and services and $100,000 for construction. It requires the procurement shall not be artificially divided in order to not exceed the thresholds, and the Chief Procurement Officer, Director of Department of Public Works, and the head of a purchasing agency send monthly reports to the legislature regarding small purchases exceeding $15,000 for supplies and services and those exceeding $50,000 for construction. Current regulations do not require the level of transparency as other methods of procurement. There is no advertisement that can signal prospective qualified contractors who can potentially submit quotes, and thus increasing the competitive pool and fostering effective competition and best value for the government. In 2004, the OPA reported several findings regarding small purchases during a 21-month period from October 1st, 2001 to June 30th, 2003. Small purchases accounted for 95% of the 10,000 purchase orders valued at $25 million. Evidence indicated at the time that multiple purchases were possibly artificially divided to pose as small purchases, an attempt to circumvent procurement regulations by not obtaining 3 telephonic or written quotations for purchases of $500 or less, or obtaining competitive sealed bids for purchases above $15,000. In effect, over time, such practices resulted in large purchases that should have required competitive sealed bidding. Evidence was also found at the time of possible preferential selection of vendors, with the top 20 vendors receiving $4.9 million in FY 2002 alone. Some of the recommendations to GSA were to cease the issuance of multiple POs to the same vendor in one day and ensure that purchases were publicized and competitively bid, and that GSA should assist agencies in identifying and developing a list of recurring goods and services needed to operate the agency throughout the year. GSA and the Department of Administration Director generally concurred with the findings and recommendations. In 2020, the Office of Public Accountability's press release highlighted that only 3 of the government agencies submitted monthly reports regarding small purchases to the legislature as required by law. And since the 2003 audit, the current influx of federal pandemic relief money warrants greater transparency and attention on practices of small purchases with the intention of fostering competition through positive quotes, ensuring that small purchases are not artificially divided to meet the threshold limits, and in those cases require the use of competitive bidding for large purchases to obtain the best value. Amended Bill 236-36 aims to reform the current statute by increasing transparency and accountability by the following: requiring 3 positive quotes from qualified sources to the maximum extent practicable, requiring documentation that includes all businesses that were contacted and their responses, whether positive or none, and that efforts were made to obtain quotations of qualified sources other than those that responded. In addition, the amended bill expands the reporting of agencies of the use of small purchases to capture not only single purchases that exceed the threshold, but cumulative amounts that exceed it. So since the submission of the committee report, we did seek additional feedback, and I would like to now proffer some amendments.
Please proceed.
Give me one moment.
We're going to take a short recess. We're back from recess. We are again on Bill number 236-36 COR. Senator Perez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the first amendment that I'd like to proffer is on line 10, page 5. To amend the bill to read, quote, "The Chief Procurement Officer, the Director of Department of Public Works, or the head of a purchasing agency or designee at or above the level procurement officer utilizing this section for procurement shall submit a report of all small purchases to the Speaker of the Legislature in Guam monthly." And so the purpose of this was to provide more transparency on the use of small purchases by any agency utilizing the small purchase method. As it currently is written in law, it'd be harder to, I guess, determine whether there are these serial small purchases that can add up to larger purchases. So through this amendment, what this amendment would do would be provide more transparency as a check to that, the use of serial small purchases that could lead to large purchases. Thank you.
Thank you. On that amendment, is there anyone who'd like to speak on the amendment? The sponsor may close on the amendment. Oh, sorry, Senator Taitui, you're recognized on the amendment. Line 10, page 5.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a question because I noticed that it's crossed out after Speaker of Legislature in Guam monthly, and on the original bill, it's not crossed out. Is there an explanation why crossing those out? Right?
Would the sponsor yield to that question?
Yes, but can it be rephrased?
Please restate your question.
Oh, okay. So based on the amendment that's provided to us on line 10, page 5, it shows that what was included of all small purchases, third line, is double underlined indicated we incorporated that to the Speaker of Legislature in Guam monthly. And then after monthly, it crosses out, or maybe I might have seen it crosses out the remaining as to a single or cumulative procurement for a contract exceeding $15,000 for supplies and services or exceeding $50,000 to $100,000 for construction to this section.
Yes, that was intentional. So really what this would do, it would change the reporting requirements to any small purchase. So right now, currently in law, the agencies report just small purchases that exceed $15,000 for supplies and services and $50,000 for construction.
Okay, because right now this amendment that I have is crossed out. If I can take 1 minute recess, because I
Yes.
think it's not.
Okay, we're going to take a 1 minute because the clerks would also like to review this. 1 minute recess. We're back from recess. Senator Perez, you have the floor on your amendment to line 10 on page 5.
All right, thank you. Just to reiterate or clarify what the amendment is, it's on line 10 to 17 on page 5. It reads, "The Chief Procurement Officer, the Director of Department of Public Works, the head of a purchasing agency, or designee at or above the level of procurement officer utilizing this section for procurement shall submit a report of all small purchases to the Speaker of the Legislature in Guam monthly," and everything else is struck at that point. And I believe the question was asked for clarification regarding the strike-through. And so currently in law, the only reporting that is done is if the small purchase exceeds $15,000, so a single event of small purchase for supplies or services above $15,000. So potentially there could be multiple small purchases that are not being reported that, it doesn't, so the idea behind small purchase procurement is to allow for the ease of using, purchasing things for an agency that falls below a certain threshold. And so the idea is that if the agency is going to use a recurring procurement, ideally it's best to use the competitive bidding versus the small purchase procurement. And so by changing the reporting to any small purchase versus just a single event that exceeds $15,000, this could potentially provide more transparency for those out there that want to procure or want to solicit, and also to the agency as a way to check and see if they really need to go through another type of procurement. And this goes for construction too. So right now and currently in law, the small purchase procurement for threshold is $100,000, but the reporting is at $50,000. So we're talking about a single event, $50,000. So there potentially could be procurements under $50,000 that never get reported, but we would like to see that so that potentially these can all add up to eventually a large purchase. And that's what we're trying to address here, is to provide that transparency for both the agency and for prospective contractors. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Taitui, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, and I thank the author for explaining that thoroughly to us. It does make sense, by underlining of all small purchases and then eliminating that. And I greatly appreciate the extended explanation too, because it also fills in some other blanks I had. So I greatly appreciate, and I stand in support of this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair, or Speaker.
Thank you. On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? If not, then the sponsor may close on the amendment. Okay. Is there any objection to this amendment on line 10, page 5? Any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Amendment passes. Senator Perez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The second amendment is on line 17 to 20, page 4, to amend the bill to read, "A no-quote response will not be considered a positive quotation, but shall be part of the procurement record, which shall further include a written record or memorandum of all solicitations and responses thereto, negative or positive, orally or in writing." So the only change here is really crossing out quotation to response. And this hopefully provides some clarity as to to make sure that a no quote, so basically what that means is sometimes businesses would respond by saying, we don't have a quote for you. And we just want to make clear that that's not considered as a positive quotation. So that doesn't count when it comes to this.
All right, on the amendment, is there anyone who would like to be recognized on the amendment? Line 17, page 4. If not, then the sponsor may close on the amendment. Is there any objection to the amendment? Seeing no objection, amendment passes. Senator Perez, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are other amendments that are being uploaded at this time.
All right,
So,
you want to do that on your closing?
yeah, I can
on
add
the
it
bill?
on closing. Thank you.
All right, then, we'll entertain discussion on the bill. Is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the bill? It's Bill 236-36COR. On the bill. Senator Taitsqui, you are recognized.
Jesus Masi, Madam Speaker, and Madam Speaker, I hope the amendment is not going to substantially change my comments on the legislation, but I think pretty much it's just to clean things up in areas that were not clearly, defined. So I appreciate it. But, it's, and I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to offer some brief remarks in support of Bill 236 as amended. Madam Speaker, the small purchases procurement statute administrative regulations are intended to support the delivery of public services in an effective and transparent manner. However, and as discussed in the OPA report 11-12, which is included in the committee report of Bill 236, there have been serious concerns raised in the past with how agencies have applied the small purchases policy. According to the OPA report 11-12, which covered small purchases prior to the legislature increasing small purchases threshold in 2018 through Public Law 34-137, their analysis found questioned costs of $3.3 million, which is comprised of A, reoccurring items for small purchases, office supplies and equipment totaled $621,000 for all agencies for all 3 years, medication, medical supplies, and services totaling $1.6 million for all agencies, of which Department of Public Health and Social Services accounted for $1.2 million for the 3 years, and computers and associated equipment totaling $884,000 for all agencies, of which Public Health accounted for $229,000. B, three small purchase POs totaling $73,111, which were each above the 15,000 threshold, should have been procured through competitive seal bids. This occurred because DOA's AS400 financial system cannot identify and prevent overpayment of small purchases. Then there's C, 20 POs totaling $95,843 issued by the Mayor's Council, none of which complied with Guam procurement law. And then D, the OPA found 6 vehicles procured through small purchase POs totaling $81,436 for 6 agencies. Madam Speaker, by requiring public employees who are authorized to procure goods and services to establish a record of their efforts made to obtain no less than 3 positive quotations from qualified services, Bill 236 recognizes the importance of exercising due diligence and promoting transparency when using taxpayer funds. I urge my colleagues to support 236, as this measure is a good step forward in our broader effort to be fiscally responsible. Bill 236 ensures that procurement authorities across our government recognize the care they must exercise with every dollar entrusted to them by local and federal taxpayers. I stand again, Madam Speaker, in full support of Bill 236, and I thank the author for including me as a co-sponsor to this measure. Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sejus Masi, Senator Taitsqui. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then we'll take a 2-minute recess for the amendments to be passed out. We're back from recess. We are still on Bill 236-36 COR. Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to temporarily place Bill 236-36 aside.
To set it aside temporarily, is there any objection? No objection. Motion carries. We're now on Bill number 247-36 COR. Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 247-36 COR, as amended by the Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations and Housing, I'd like to move to place into third reading file for discussion.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 247-36 COR, as introduced by myself, co-sponsored by Senator San Augustine, Senator Shelton, and Senator Duenas, is an act to amend subsection 53101D and 53102 and add new subsection 53109 of Chapter 53, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to transferring the authority of the Guam Able Savings Program from the Department of Revenue and Taxation to the Department of Administration, and authorizing the governor to identify and transfer up to $250,000 from the general fund to implement the program. Madam Speaker, the amendment we are making is to Public Law 34-144, which was enacted on December 12th of 2018, and it established the Able Savings Program Act. This measure was introduced by Senator Dennis Rodriguez and co-sponsored by Senator Joe San Augustine. This is a local plan which mirrors the federal program of Achieving a Better Life Experience. That's what ABLE stands for. This act is a federal act back in 2014. Now, what is the Guam ABLE Savings Program? Well, it allows individuals and families to save private funds through a qualified, tax-exempt savings program to support individuals with disabilities. ABLE accounts are bank accounts that allow people with special needs to save money without jeopardizing their disability benefits. Money saved in a traditional bank account counts against the ability to qualify for disability benefits. Now, ABLE accounts come from the federal ABLE program. Again, that means Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. But they are established and managed on a state, or in our case, a territorial level. Public Law 34-144 authorizes the Department of Revenue and Taxation to establish the Guam ABLE Savings Program. We did a follow-up with DRT and was asked of the status of this ABLE program. And we received a written response why the program has not been established, due to not having appropriations to pay for the services needed, which these services include engaging a consultant service to assist in launching this program, and engage a fund program manager to hire for this purpose, and provide funds for associated startup administrative fees and overhead. DRT also noted conflicts with administering the ABLE program, because DRT is also their responsibilities includes regulating banks. So considering that, then to issue an RFP to solicit banking services for the ABLE program, well, this was their conflict that they pointed out. So this bill provides the amendments to correct the issues DRT has stated and to get the ABLE's Program Act moving. It authorizes the governor to identify and transfer the transfer authority, which we did through Public Law 3654, up to $250,000 from the general fund for consulting services, and program managers, and startup administration fees, and the overhead expected to come from this. The changes of the ABLE program for DRT, they also recommended one agency that was really in favor to handle this, and that's Department of Administration, which testified in favor of this and taking the lead on this as well, DOA. So this bill corrects then the conflict identified by DRT having to regulate the issue with RFPs to the bank. And the program shall be able to accept funds from the account owners no later than October 1st of 2022, which DOA is in agreement with. We understand from other testimony at the public hearing that 39 states have already started the ABLE program, and that Guam will be the first territory by the passage of this bill to able to do so as well. Other testimonies made during the public hearing that there's approximately 1,783 young adults who are in school now under the ages of 18. But once they become over the age of 18, well, they're added to the adult program, and of course, this will affect them as well. Currently, the Bureau of Statistics and Plan has identified 29,236 in their testimony as well, from Mr. Tanner at the time, that this could possibly impact. We just need to get the program started. DRT has identified how this program can get started by transferring it to the Department of Administration. Department of Administration is willing to help and just needs our okay to do this. So I ask my colleagues to kindly consider this, and I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill 247-36 COR, is there any senator who would like to be recognized? On Bill 247-36. Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I had the opportunity to participate in the public hearing not too long ago with regards to this bill. Certainly have no objection to the creation of these accounts or the need for members of our disabled community to be able to establish such savings accounts and be able to ensure that they're not losing any of the current benefits they receive as a result of what they are able to save. I did have a number of questions at that public hearing that I don't feel were answered. One, and so perhaps since then, because I don't see anything more added with regards to information in terms of how many people do we know would be eligible, because I understand there is a cutoff at the age of 26 of individuals that would be able to participate in this program. Do we have any idea if the main sponsor of the bill will yield to answer that question?
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the testimonies provided at the public hearing by Chuck Tanner did mention through his research that approximately 1,783 children are living with disabilities on Guam. Now, this information comes from Guam Department of Education for the current year. And he states that I do not know the number of children per year in order to derive at this average, but I can assume this number is somewhat stable and consistent. As children turn 18 or so, they drop out of the count and new children enter GDOE. They will be added. And for this information, ABLE accounts can only be established for benefit of people who develop their disabilities before turning 26 years old. Latest statistics reveal 29,236 adults in Guam have a disability, and this is from the source of the Bureau of Stats and Planning. Using these statistics together, you could extrapolate the potential participants in this ABLE program. Madam Speaker, I think with Mr. Tanner's public statement and testimony and his research there, we can see that we probably have several hundred, if not close to 1,000 people that could be eligible for this program. This is just the opportunity to open the program. Whether people put money into the program or not, we do not know. But what we are doing is establishing it for that possibility, because the cost of living continues to increase.
Madam Speaker, I asked a specific question. I understand certainly if the sponsor would want to elaborate further on his
Senator
bill.
Brown, yes.
But I was asking a specific question. I appreciate that. I also wanted to ask, as I did at the
Senator Brown.
Yes.
Senator Moylan, have you completed your response to the question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think these numbers are factual and clear and should be understood. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Brown.
I also had another question at the public hearing with regards to the program manager, because it indicates that it would require an appropriation of up to $250,000. Now, maybe in the big picture of the government of Guam, $250,000 is not a substantial amount. Certainly to the average person out there, it's a tremendous amount of money. And I note from the record with regards to the original bill that was passed towards the end of the 34th Guam Legislature, our good colleague who co-sponsored this legislation had made a statement on the floor of this legislature that this simply would be allowing Guam to be in concurrence with this federal program, essentially, but would require no appropriation. And so I see with this version, it says up to $250,000. And they even reference previous legislation that was passed in a previous legislature. I was a co-sponsor of that with regards to the college savings. And that was a public law that was signed by, at the time, Governor Felix Camacho. And this was Bill 37, which subsequently became Public Law 28177 with regards to the ability to save for college funds. And so I wanted to inquire, what exactly is the role of this manager, and why is it something we need to compensate or have in place? I mean, essentially the institution that would be setting up these accounts, why do we need to have anyone manage those accounts? I don't think it's extraordinarily different from the average person out there going out and setting up an account in a bank. I'm not paying a bank more than the fees that I pay them for that service to manage my account or have my account in place at that particular financial institution. So I'd once again like to ask for clarification. What exactly is the manager going to do in overseeing these accounts, and is it necessary? If a financial institution is going to provide this service, why are we paying anything beyond what the normal fees would be charged? What's so extraordinary about these accounts versus anyone else's bank account? If the sponsor will yield to that question.
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to refer back to what we're actually doing in this bill, Madam Speaker, and I think I can do my best to answer my colleague's question. This is public law already. I'm not referring to the program manager or what the responsibilities are for the program manager. What this bill is addressing, Madam Speaker, is the agency that is in charge and the opening of the account to establish what is needed to get this account going. That's all we're doing with this amendment. This is now public law. But to answer the question, what I understand the program manager means is a financial organization selected by the director, which this bill changes from DRT to DOA, as the depository manager for the program. And they're referring to this, the program 529, which is regarding a Guam College Savings Program. And these are federal regulations that they are mirroring to establish the ABLE account. One thing that also was provided in the testimony by Mr. Tanner is that he agreed and needed the flexibility of comments by the Director Burns, and he finds that reasonable with the phrase up to. It could be no need, but it's just up to $250,000. But when you're establishing a department to run this program, you may need up to. We be projected if there were thousands of people ready to get into this program, but we do not know. But the startup costs, which DRT has said that this legislature has not provided the fundings to start it off, was also a problem. So we resolved that by including the amount of up to following the federal programs similar to the 529 College Savings Program, administered by a program manager for the financial organization selected by the director to act as the depository manager of the program. It's up to the director of administration. Let us give him the flexibility, let us give their department the flexibility to open this program and be the first territory to help those that are qualified for this program. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator.
Well, I have to say, this did not answer the question. Again, I have no problem or objection with regards to the implementation of this federal law or the ability of members of our disabled community to be able to set up such accounts, but I do want clarification as to who exactly is the program manager and why do we need to compensate the program manager. I mean, is this going to be a government undertaken responsibility, or are we simply having a financial institution that is out there providing this type of service, simply providing this type of service and charging the fees that they would with any other account that they may have in their particular financial institution? I would be concerned if the intent is to grow government. I don't see what purpose we would need as a government to be directly involved with regards to this, because I'm assuming if a disabled person has their authority to save their money as they choose to, they can make that decision. For those that are unable to because of a disability, they would have a designated representative to be able to make those decisions on their behalf with regards to whatever it is that they're putting into these accounts. Why does this require additional financial investment of funds to do so? That is the question that today still has not been answered. And certainly, I have no objection again to the purpose of this bill, but I don't have clarification as to why we have to hire a program manager to do so. Now, the question was brought up at the public hearing, are we hiring an individual in the government of Guam to do that? And the response, again, of the sponsor of this bill refers to Mr. Tanner, that I believe, according to his testimony, had worked for Senator Rodriguez and I guess identifies himself as being the one that contributed to the development of this particular version. But that's what I think is a very valid question that needs to be answered. Because what makes this anything unique other than the change in qualifications under our tax laws that will allow disabled members of our community to be able to open these accounts, and whatever amounts they put in their savings does not impact the services or other benefits they may be receiving as a disabled person. What other steps require additional funding to do that if it's going to be a separate financial institution of where this money is going to be entrusted? What is the role of the government here? Who is this program manager that's going to be operating this program? And what are we adding to the government of Guam burden? Are we doing that? Again, that still has not been clarified. I look at the original legislation with regards to the college fund. I'm just going to read an excerpt from that particular legislation that was sponsored by then Senator Larry Kasperbauer. It says, all administrative fees, costs, and expenses, including investment fees and expenses, shall be paid from the operating account of the fund, and notwithstanding any other law to the contrary, may be made without appropriation or allotment. Even though this bill is referred to as the model for which this current bill is being proposed. And then the bill from the 34th Guam Legislature, the statement that was made to the body was there was no additional money required other than designating the Department of Revenue Tax as the government agency that would be tasked with implementing this law. Of course, in this one now, because Revenue Tax has come back and said we cannot implement it because we have a conflict, because we regulate the bank and financial institutions, we cannot be engaged with them with regards to this program. I think we all understand that, that's fine. So the alternative is the Department of Administration. No problem with that. DOA, sure, by all means implement it. But Madam Speaker, I still have no clarification. What are we appropriating the money to? What is it to be used for? And who's going to use it and who's going to receive it? That is the question I have, which still, from the time of the public hearing to here on the floor, unless anyone else has any more information, I don't have clarification on what that purpose is. And again, to look at it from a standpoint of fiscal responsibility, I'd like to know what we're spending the money on. Who's getting it? What are they doing with it? Because I don't doubt, Madam Speaker, there are so many other needs of the disabled community and the need of the disabled community members that we have, that I'm sure if we got money to appropriate, especially since now we're asking the governor to transfer from other sources, even special funds. Which special fund? Do we know what special fund we're taking it out of, considering one thing that's come to light is obviously the special funds are getting less money. It's one thing that's happened this past couple of years, they're getting less money. So which special account that's been set aside for a specific need is the money going to be taken from? We're not specifying that, we're opening it up to whatever fund the governor chooses to take it from. Is that fiscally responsible? Especially when we're going to do that, and we don't have an answer, Madam Speaker, as to what the use of the money is going to be. If there was a clear understanding of that, then I would say, by all means, I'm on board. I'm going to vote for this. But those questions existed weeks ago when this bill came up for public hearing, And those questions still exist today. And so unless the sponsor can elaborate and clarify what's the intent of the money and where is it, especially because we did put some constraints with regards to the governor's transfer authority. And now we're asking to change that in language included in this particular bill. That's all it is, Madam Speaker. It's a question of fiscal responsibility and how are we spending the people's money? Where is it going and what's it going to do? And I have to tell you, unless anyone else here has further clarification to respond to that question, it's very difficult to vote for this bill, including a funding source that, is going to take from other needs in the government, without any answers as to how much or where it's going to go or who are we paying. Who are we paying for this, especially when the original bill that was sponsored by Senator Dennis Rodriguez, before that bill was passed, the body was told no additional revenue required, no additional funding required. And now we're back a few years later, and we're just going to open the door and say up to $250,000, and for what? We still have no information with regards to specifically what that is. And why do we need to pay a financial institution to implement the creation of bank accounts that simply are going to allow members of our disabled community to open these accounts and have whatever funds they put in it not be counted against them or the benefits or services that they receive from their disability? Why is that necessary? I don't understand that. Any one of us right now could get up and go to a bank, savings and loan, and open a bank account. Why are we paying money to do that? That's the question that I have, Madam Speaker. Perhaps if there's further discussion or deliberation, maybe someone here can answer that question. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask questions and make my statement with regards to this bill.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Taitigui, you are recognized on the bill.
Seduce Masi, Madam Speaker. I did some research on this legislation, and the good senator from Chalampago also mentioned how it actually derived from a bill that was introduced by Senator Kasperbauer for the Guam College Fund, and which was a great bill, help those, to prepare your children for college, an account that was tax-free and assist them. But during that, when I was looking at that legislation that was introduced and looked at the process and the program there, I didn't see any appropriations needed for that at all. Then as I read Chuck Tanner's testimony, which was after the public hearing, he spoke of how this bill first introduced by Senator Rodriguez was driven by, followed the same program as the one for the Guam College. So I decided to watch the public session, the session for this bill while it was being debated on the floor. And I recall, at the time, Speaker, that you had asked that question, about the cost of this, the appropriation. And it was brought up by then another senator here who was a co-sponsor of that legislation, clearly saying twice, no funding is needed for this program. Let's make it clear, no funding is needed for this program. So that's what made me think, why then are we wanting to appropriate $250,000 to this program? Could it be another reason to just get this bill heard in a particular committee oversight? Because it was clear that this bill was not implemented because of the lack of funding. It was because of a conflict of interest. That's why they wanted to move this bill, not because of funding. In the legislation, it brought to my attention the fact that it's also including special funds. Now, Madam Speaker, we might be able to see the CRER report reporting out excess revenue, but we sure are not seeing that in the special funds. Almost $10 million of being short in the special funds. We are not seeing it there. So why would you even think about going to an area of taking funding out of special funds that have, for the last 2 years, have been not tracking on appropriation? So there's a lot of questions to this legislation. The intentions are good, they are, but then again, questions weren't answered at the public hearing, which I attended by, the director of Guam Development Disabilities Council, who couldn't even answer the question as to, well, it all depends, the requirement of this, who can avail themselves of this opportunity, and they didn't even have a number. They couldn't even give a number. Madam Speaker, I have issues with this legislation, but sometimes bills get through, and even though that you think it really should go back to committee and more research and people coming to the table to discuss this, because $250,000 is a lot of money. A lot of money. So just to ensure some kind of hope that, if it does get through this body, it is passed, that at least we can protect one area that has actually been tracking very, very below projections, and that's a special fund. So I created an amendment to this legislation, and I'd like to proffer it, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Thank you. It's on line 9 through 11, page 3. It's to amend Section 4 of the bill to read, up to $250,000 from the general fund, and then it crosses out, or any special fund to the Department of Administration to assist in the implementation of the Guam Able Savings Program. Madam Speaker, let me read to you the section in the fiscal note provided by BBMR. There's a section that talks about the special funds. The Bureau recognizes that 4103.1, Chapter 4, Title 5, Guam Code, and it authorizes the governor to transfer to the general fund cash value for any appropriated special funds to the fund, the appropriations authorized by the annual or supplemental budget act. However, all cash amounts from special funds transferred to cover the appropriations authorized by the annual and supplemental budget act or any other act or law authorizing appropriation shall be promptly reimbursed to the special fund from which it was withdrawn within 60 days after receipt of transferred cash amount by the general fund. So, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of red flags on the field on this one. So I think that's an area that we need to stay away from, especially a place that's not tracking. So this is my amendment to strike out any special funds.
On the amendment, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate my colleagues' amendment, and I'm glad we're looking at this for the word of or. There was no intent for it to be shall, but if we wish to cross out the word or for special funds, that's fine with me, Madam Speaker. I have no objections.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? Senator Perez, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment. I think special funds are there for particular uses, and we should really respect what those purposes are. And yeah, we've heard about the rating of the, certain funds, and I think, it's important that we keep those funds sacred. So I rise in full support.
On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? If not, the sponsor may close on the amendment.
That's okay, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the amendment? Lines 9 through 11, page 3. Any objection? Seeing no objection, the amendment passes. Senator Taitagui, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are still a lot of questions unanswered here. The program manager scenario, understanding that it's basically the accounts that was brought up. It's not really an individual. So then again, if it's not an individual, or what do they need the up to $250,000 for? We're just providing another avenue for the opportunity to, hire someone else in this position that opens accounts, and that's all they do all day. I think we need to learn to be more frugal with our funding, our money, the taxpayers' money. We need to account for every penny that we spend, and this particular bill right here does not provide us that transparency. And definitely, I don't see an accountability mechanism to this at all. So I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. On Bill 247-36 COR, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the author's intent to move it from DRT to DOA. It makes a lot of sense. There could be potentially some conflicts of interest because DRT does oversee banking, and so I do support that change. The one thing I would like to also bring to light is that the PATH Act, that was signed in 2015, it stands for Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes. What it did, it removed the residency requirements from 529 ABLE accounts. It gives individuals the option of using any state plan. And some states may offer tax benefits for those who use their home state plan. No matter where a person resides, they can open an ABLE account in any state that accepts outside residents into their program. And so Guam residents can potentially apply in a different state. So there are 46 states that offer ABLE accounts. Of those 46, 26 accept out-of-state residents. And so there's another path to this. Those that are seeking ABLE accounts can actually set up an account in any bank on Guam, or can possibly seek advice from a financial advisor without the intervention by the government. And this possibly could be the more fiscal approach. And so the amendment, actually I'd like to proffer an amendment. It should be on the drive. It's on line 22 to 26 on page 2. It will amend a bill to read, "The director shall establish the Guam ABLE Savings Program to provide for or facilitate individual savings accounts that empower individuals with a disability and their families to save private funds to support an individual with a disability." So what this amendment does, it allows for that second path, which is much more cost-effective. So individuals that want to set up these accounts can do so directly with an institution here on Guam without having the government set up a program. And so how this could potentially be implemented is that DOA can sponsor webinars, sponsor fairs for those entities that would like, that provide these services. And they can easily put this up in their website. And I could see this easily being implemented and at a more cost-effective means. And so this is, so it doesn't change the ABLE, it doesn't alter it greatly, it just provides a second option for those that want to take advantage of it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, on the Perez amendment to lines 22 to 26 on page 2, Senator Blas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I really don't rise in opposition for the amendment, and I appreciate the mover of the amendment's, desire to want to make sure that we can maximize the program. But it does then bring to light, and it brings us back to the, one of the initial concerns that was brought up by a gentle lady from Chalampago with regards to where's this money going to be going to. And I think that in order to be able to fully be comfortable with this is basically a answer with certainty as to where the $250,000 is going. When you look at this thing at first glance, it's basically, okay, are we establishing a new position within DOA to be able to do this? And if that's the case, is that where the $250,000 is going? I don't want to build a problem onto another problem, okay, or make a mountain out of an anthill. But I have to bring, and I have to continue and continue to raise that concern as to, goes back to the initial question. Again, I appreciate the ability here and the attempt to be able to ensure that, this is a more comprehensive program that opens it up to everybody, but goes back to that initial question of what the $250,000 is going to be used for. Okay, so I'd love to be able to say that I stand in full support of this amendment and stand in full support of the legislation. I love the intent of the legislation. I love the intent of this amendment. But I think that we also have a fiscal responsibility of being able to understand what we are funding in this. And is this an amendment that is going to be able to be, if this were to pass, is this part of what the $250,000 is going to be used for? I need certainty in that before I can say yes or no to this. So I continue to stand and just listen and hopefully to find the answers to that. I think it's a legitimate concern, and it is, again, compounded and a little bit more by the proffering of this, what appears to be a great amendment. Okay, so with that, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this, and I'll continue to listen to the deliberations on this matter. And that was speaking on this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? Senator Moylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This was also brought up during the public hearing as well by Michelle Santos, Banking and Insurance Commissioner at Rev Tax. On her letter to us that was part of the committee report, item number 2, she references Miss Alice Cruz, supervisor of the insurance and banking, has also sought assistance through our national affiliates and has contacted an organization in Ohio who can assist us with this program. And we continue to reach out to them and see if we can finalize a partnership to implement the ABLE program. Very similar to what the amendment is proposing as well. So yes, that option is available since there are so many other states already implementing this. What was also mentioned in the letter is that DRT, in their recommendations, would prefer to go with scenario 1. Scenario 1, again, is that we create our local program here. But they're willing to do whatever it needs to get done ASAP. So adding on to this, with this amendment, that the director shall establish Guam Able Savings Program to provide for or facilitate individual savings accounts that empower individuals with a disability and their families to have separate funds in support of individual disabilities. I have no objection, and I'm sure the Department of Administration Director as well would look into this. These recommendations were made during the public hearing. We're just giving them the authorization to either take scenario 1 or scenario 2. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment. On the amendment, is there anyone on the amendment? If not, then the sponsor may close on the amendment. Is there any objection to the amendment? Seeing no objection, amendment passes. Senator Perez, you still have the floor on the bill. All right, on the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Senator Dueñas, on the bill.
Madam Speaker, I certainly rise in support of 24736 as a co-sponsor, but I want to say that I do understand the concerns brought up by my colleagues today. I don't think there's any dispute on the issue of support for transferring from rev and tax to DOA the responsibilities. I find it necessary to expand on Chuck Tanner's supplemental testimony simply because there was a couple things in there that haven't been represented yet. The research that was done and the discussion earlier about the Guam College Fund in terms of savings accounts. In Chuck Tanner's research, you see, the program manager actually was an outsourced function to ASC Corporation. That is the way the program manager is described here. So I would envision that more than likely, Department of Administration would do something similar. There's been representations by our colleagues who have been expressing concerns over the $250,000 or up to, as the author states. There have been representations that more than likely, of course, since these would be bank accounts, I'm sure some sort of procurement would be put out. Now, if the Department of Administration intends, I wouldn't think the Department of Administration would intend on creating a small business division under DOA in order to do something that the banking institutions already do. But I could envision a similar situation whereby the college savings funds were established under a private company, ASC Corporation. Now, we don't have the cost of that program, but I think the program manager, at least in the comparison, is appropriate here. And so in this situation, when we discuss the funding source up to $250,000, I would imagine that the Department of Administration is still going to have to justify the expenditures of up to $250,000, just like I'm sure that when the college fund was set up and ASC Corporation was selected, there has to be a justification for an annual cost to administer that program. Now, I also, and I'm sure the author, is not here whatsoever intending to expand government and to expand a division within Department of Administration to administer this benefit program. But I would imagine that the director will come back to this body and it would be a budgetary line item under the Department of Administration in order to operate this program. Now, if the Director of Department of Administration comes back in the budget cycle and identifies a $250,000 appropriation for administering this program with a program manager, 2 assistants, a secretary, office space, then we might have to revisit what the up to $250,000 meant. But if the Director of Department of Administration establishes this program like the college fund and outsources it to banking institutions, they may have an administrative cost. Just like I'm sure the ASC Corporation didn't do it for free when it comes to administering the program of the college savings accounts. Because that was done, Madam Speaker, in the testimony, which I'm sure can be fact-checked, under a 529 program, which establishes that ability for those tax-free type accounts. So, once again, I want to be clear. I certainly understand the concerns. But I have a concern that if we're going to juxtapose programs, that we do it with the totality of understanding that that juxtaposition was also not free of charge. I'm sure if we were to ask ASC Corporation, maybe we could get a budget whereby they administered and probably still may be administering these college savings programs. But I'm here to say, more than likely, it's not for free. So I think that we're all going to continue to believe that this is the right thing to do, to transfer because of conflict of interest. This law, this mandate that was passed by this body that has not been repealed to date, to the Department of Administration, establish a budget up to $250,000, but this body has every right also to hold accountable whatever monies to be expended up to $250,000 to establish this program. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, we've done something that we've been told we're famous for doing if we go down the road and at least don't attach a dollar figure to it or some sort of opportunity for a dollar figure. Unfunded mandates. And so, once again, just to be clear, I completely understand the feelings. But once again, to have represented on the floor here that a great bill, which I also agree, a great bill that became a public law that established accounts for a similar purpose, to provide for these opportunities and to represent that it didn't have a cost probably is completely not true. Once again, ASC Corporation is a business. They manage retirement accounts. They manage all kinds of different business transactions. And once again, I'm sure they didn't do it or don't do it for free. So I'll continue to listen. I'll continue to understand the concern. Perhaps, maybe we set up a response requirement from Department of Administration to say exactly what their intent would be on how to administer the program. But I would think, and I'm actually clear at this point, that a program manager doesn't have to be or doesn't have to mean a department and division established under Department of Administration, because if we use the example that we've been using on the college savings program, it is an outsourced program. Maybe we can even make a quick call to Department of Administration and say, are you still doing this? Are you still following through on a law that was put into action years and years ago, legislatures and legislatures ago, and what is it costing? But at this point, I do know that this legislature has the ability, the oversight, and the managing and monitoring of government funds when we set up a program and we ask for a program to be administered, once again, just like the college savings program, which I sure is not free to administer, that we can keep an eye on that. Otherwise, if we don't intend to establish a mechanism for these accounts to be established, we may as well just repeal the law. Because why put something on the books where we say this is a possibility, this is an ability for disabled individuals up to 26 years old to establish an account tax-free savings, to not have it affect any other benefits that they may be eligible for. If we don't want to do that and fund it, then we should repeal the law. Because aside from that, we've just done what we always are accused of doing, created an unfunded mandate. So I support the bill. I support any possible amendments coming forward. But I think it's important when we make observations here on the floor of how programs have been implemented to make an equal representation that I'm sure they have a cost. I'm comfortable with up to. If there's an amendment to reduce it, that could possibly be entertained. But let's be clear. Sidus Mahasi, Madam Chair.
Sidus Masi. On the bill,
Point of information, Madam Speaker.
please state your point of
Madam
information.
Speaker, it was clear that the college savings account did not require any funding whatsoever. Just wanted to make it clear.
On the bill, on Bill 247-36 COR, is there any senator who'd like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then the sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, for the discussion on the bill. Again, if we follow what was presented in the public hearing, as mentioned by one of my colleagues, this is not the first time that Guam Legislature has given the department additional programs to administer without appropriation. We're satisfying this need with the department in order to do that, in order to invest in or up to see if it's necessary to engage in services for consultants in launching this program, to engage in a fund program manager hired for this purpose, or to provide funds for the associated startup administrative fees and overhead. I agree, Madam Speaker, for my colleague's statement. If we are not providing the funding source of up to $250,000, doesn't mean they're going to spend $250,000. Then repeal the law, because it's not going to move forward. It has been sitting here, and we have identified the problems through these directors on how to fix this. How many people are involved? Well, one source said it's going to be hundreds at a time initially when this program gets started. The other source says there are 1,783 children living with disabilities on the island that will be coming up for this program as well. We sure hope families and friends can apply or place money into this account that provides them the additional money needed to survive at the high cost of living on our island. Ed Byrne, in his statement, said, so far as funding is concerned, certainly funding is going to be needed, and we absolutely appreciate the fact that the administrative cost for this program would come from some source. Mr. Byrne continued to say, we would seek vendors who will be able to perform this both from consulting point of view and from a maintenance point of view. And we don't anticipate any difficulty doing this because we already know the 529 accounts in the territory, so we have a model to follow. So that said, we know our Department of Administration is happy to move this along and to be able to be part of this implementing of this legislation. I appreciate my colleagues' comments that they want to see this program start. This is the solution presented on the floor and argued and discussed during the public hearing and debated on the session floor. I look forward to moving this bill forward, and I wish to place this bill into third reading voting file. Madam Speaker.
On the motion to place Bill 247-36 COR to the third reading file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now on Bill number 68-36. Vice Speaker. We're going to, this is Senator Shelton's committee's bill. 68. Take a 1-minute recess. All right. We're back from recess. We're back from recess. Vice Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that we recess session until Monday at 10 in the morning.
All right. Motion to recess until Monday at 10. Is there any objection?
No objection.
Seeing no objection, we're recessed until Monday 10 a.m.